Testimony. I will try to be, I'll just bring the things that come up. I've been listening to Ronald Bernard. The way that he describes becoming sick from work, which is very different because he was already in these circles, okay? This feeling accompanied me when I was just seeking a job. So I was, going from high school, then parents said, oh, it's a good idea that you begin to work. And so to make your own living, and then you look for a job. And time again, I would become sick. I just figured holistically, maybe I need to find a vocation where I will be healthy, which would eventually lead me after studies to learn like aromatherapy or more holistic view of medicine, which also has pros and cons because the holistic view is also biased. But I remember in my therapy with the they don't know what's energy, basically, I was also going to meditation for someone who was later to be my teacher in aromatherapy. And we were in the meditation. I was trying to see, and I told her, I don't see anything. She said, agree to see. And I said, I don't see anything. And then I saw something about the little child, something about the devil's children. I told her, see something, the devil's children. She said, no, don't communicate from those entities from in between worlds. Okay, I had no idea. Yes, you would see like the synchronicities of the 666. I didn't pay much attention to this. They were coming big. And another thing that was coming, I remember I once asked, they don't know what's energy, I asked him, are you from United States? Because there is energy of United States, is energy unfamiliar to me. And he said, no. And I would see things like those things that people would consider conspiracy, like MK Ultra or the Alice in Wonderland. And I was like, is it me? Is it him? Where is this thing coming from? I think I was listening to Gigi Young at the time, but I didn't understand why am I receiving this? Did he expect me to like bring this up in therapy, that I receive these things? And I said no, because I don't know where it's coming from, and it's not something that I feel related to. And the reason I went to therapy was to treat to see what happened in my childhood and to heal my relational trauma. So that was pretty much the objective of why I went there after Me Too. And I said I would need relations in everything that I do, whether in job, a career, anything, a personal life, and it's good to treat that. And it's good to go within and to tend to me. Yes, before you change the world, you tend to yourself, but it's done together. There was the question of work after university. I took a break from university, and there was the question of work. I wasn't studying aromatherapy yet, and I was still kind of struggling. I wrote an essay about ESP, and I learned about this, and my philosophy of medicine thesis proposal got approved. But it was difficult to pursue on. A good friend had grandparent that died from digestion issue after the vaccine, I think. But it was a flu vaccine. It was a flu vaccine, this I remember. And after that, I was with my then good friend in university, and I was supposed to, I don't know, file something, and I felt that my body will not allow me to pursue studies right now, and I had to stop. Going back to academia, what surprised me is that the person that was violating my boundaries in academia, he was not religious at all. He was deeply atheistic, and it was very important to him, very, very important to him. It was one of the reasons that were creating rapport. I have dual nationality, and this means that many people, would not see me as Jewish enough, and I'm secular in general. So there was actually a point of rapport. Not that he created on purpose, it was genuine. But I kept seeing things to do with the secretariat, actually, to do with Masonic. And I didn't understand anything. It seemed unreasonable to me that he would be Masonic, and I still don't think he's necessarily Masonic, but there was some Masonic involvement. He was protecting these people when I didn't think much, because I thought that these are like the people that created, our nations and the Enlightenment, and I didn't know anything about this. Actually, the only reason I didn't try to join myself was because, not because I'm a woman, there are lodges that accept women, but because they require you to keep secret. And for me, as of, I think it was 2006 or something like that, I went through a deep transformation. There was even a painting that I made about a person, a face that has a brick wall, like inside the face, and it's like you build a wall around yourself and then go and break a brick wall. And I went and broke that wall. And so there was no secrecy. Okay, it was to get to the truth of me, and there was no secrecy, and I'm not a secretive person. So I did not join those lodges. And then my good friend, we had a friend that did. And I remember he was, one time my friend snuck into their bedroom and took the books. I didn't read deeply, I didn't look at the books. But he said it's all kind of funny rituals that they make, this ritual and that ritual and that ritual. Okay. And I remember my parent from the Israeli side told me that in one of the funerals they came two people for like this Masonic, and they played like knights art, like with knives and so. And I saw this in university once. I like to sit at the physics garden, even before I studied. So I saw two people. It seemed very amusing. Okay, I was like, okay, they like this. It's like children play for them. And I didn't see anything necessarily bad with this at all. Okay, I was just like, it doesn't speak to me. I need autonomy. I need sovereignty. I need, to be myself. I'm not a particularly rebel, but just to be. But I didn't connect the dots, and I remember that I started understanding that when it comes to, let's say, communicating with the other sex, that they would teach them stuff that's kind of like it's creating trauma bond, okay? And I ran into this when in 2007 somebody communicated with me in this way, and I was the kind of people that it would work with because I had relational trauma to begin with, and this was, I advise you never communicate in those ways. Because it backfired on him so hard that he did not know how to get out of me. and I did not know where to go to healing. Nobody understood what I was talking about. They say everybody has a little bit emotional extortion. I think maybe I have a psychiatric issue. What is my problem? Okay. So it's not to say that I did not have problems, but it's those type of communication types. So when that person in academia began to communicate in these ways, I'm like, this is no go. I don't like this, and I so much wrote a satire about these patterns. This was Sugar-Free Lemonade, these patterns and the structure, the parochial, patriarchal, but patriarchy in the sense of like the church patriarchy, okay? And how this whole thing is actually bad for intimacy. And so, but I didn't connect that to children so much. And they don't know what's energy, his position. So I didn't know that because I was just in trouble and seeking to help myself. So I just went with therapy that I could find and afford somehow. And I didn't even ask for certification because I didn't believe in that. I still don't. But he did have all the certifications, so he's not like he's a sham doctor or no. That's the problem, that he had the certification. It's the process of getting certified that this is the problem. You have to be a member of these cults, very likely. And so, but I remember something funny, as I didn't know even what type of therapy it was, because I was like, I'm manifesting my therapy. I tried to do manifestation and so on. So I said I will manifest the healing and so on. But when he told me psychodynamic psychotherapy, I didn't say this to him. I don't know with what powers. Immediately I thought this is not those that sleep with the patient. And then yes, he would be energetically sexual with me. It's like the astral field. I didn't even know what it is. I thought astral sex is, I don't know, people flying over their bodies, but no, you feel it in the body like somebody touching you. But this was somehow okay. So he built it up that it was okay with me in the beginning. And then because these people operate by a trauma bonding, then this is what came up. Is actually, when you think about it, it's very bad because he was trying to bring me, the child, to the room. Until I came to the room, and only then I could look at his eyes. Me, the child, could look at his eyes. His eyes were shining. This particularly, I remember. Usually if I wear my glasses, I say, I can look at you with the glasses, but it's too much information. Then I try to take off the glasses so maybe I can see you to look directly, because it's too much information. And even about the sexual thing, he was surprised. I told him, no, I don't think I could touch you in the physical. Because it's too much information, too much data. I'm overwhelmed with the data. There was a lot of data over, so I don't know what was happening there in terms of energy. But that was yes. So that was the thing, and in this situation, the not normal becomes the normal. So you just ask yourself, okay, how am I feeling with this? How am I feeling this? I like this. I don't like it. And that's it. You're supposed to get into the experience. But he did all kinds of hypnotic things. In the beginning, I thought that this is just, I'm going out of those type of hypnotic commands that are used to abuse people, and I'm going into the way that this very type of commands are used to heal people. It's what I thought, because I said I manifest therapy. But unfortunately, this was not so. And his position, he was treating people, adults that had childhood trauma. Also treated children. Also working for diagnosis with the welfare, who is a child to be taken out of the parents or not. He was sued for that by one mother. And also therapist for these children that are at the risk. So when I watched Ronald Bernard, immediately I thought back to the don't know what's energy. And also when he was attracted, I was, yes, it's not about exhibitionism, it's just that it's perhaps will be helpful to understand what is going on. He was not attracted just to me, the woman, but to me, the child. It was one situation, I was sitting in the room, And to get to me, the child, and didn't notice, I was like to sit like with my legs crossed on the chair, and I was with a skirt. I didn't know that the skirt was not hiding something. And then he got aroused. So he said to me that later he was aroused to the child because he felt like the child is coming out, is not paying attention about whether she's been erotic or not. And this was the truth. I felt seen at that point. So the erotic rapport was between me, the child, and him. And I didn't think all that much from this because I thought it's my way to touch the place where I can relate or the place where I can feel erotic rapport in some way. And so, but then when he got violent to me, the child. So this is after I finally managed to bring me the child into the room, maybe triggered things in him, and he got violent to me, the child. And this was where, all the red lights went, because it was not just about me as a woman or his issues with women or mother wounds or whatnot, but it was, which is not okay, but it was me, the child, that he was being violent to. Okay, me, the child that had to fend herself, had to protect herself, going from the child that wants to be like the father. And I would look a lot at the field of psychology and videos around this, to the child that had to fend for herself against her own father. And we talk about psychodynamics, so it's basically the dynamic that you create, the roles that people play in this dynamic and the projections that they have. So that was very scary for me, because when I learned that he was doing all these roles, filling up all these roles, is beyond about him, but basically that there are people that fill all these many roles in society and decide too much on the children. And the more I learn on the topic, the more I understand it's nearly impossible, if not impossible, to be in the role that he was, in the key roles of every juncture of therapy. So a person cannot come out like Ronald Bernard did. He came out of being an ex-banker and a child who went through abuse and did horrible things and perpetrator, to a place where perhaps there could be healing. Okay, so at all these healing junctures, you have the same person sitting that is going to be a perpetrator. And the more I learned about this, the more I understood that this is how these things work. And this is why you would have the certification for everything. When people began to go to astrology, because it's like, then you have this in astrology too. They try to make the certification for astrology. It's not that they care so much about astrologists, it's that they don't want people out of these systems. I did not connect the dots between kind of like the MK Ultra, the Satan children, that, I'm a secular person. And also I understand, I still believe so, that the people who are really, really like the big horrid people, they're not religious. Even what they say, Luciferianism, Lucy this, Lucy that, Lucy... Okay, Lucy and this guy with diamonds, Lucifer is connected with Venus, which is pleasure, autonomy, willing consent, fertility. Okay, none of that. So whatever Lucifer they're working on is not Lucifer, and Satan is connected with Saturn, which is the Lord of Karma, mind you. It means that if you did something to a child, you're going to get karma for that. So, so you understand that this is not, whatever Saturn or Satan they're working with is not even, is not even a Saturn. So you understand it's all a make-up thing that they are doing to enslave people. And so because it's not real, then I didn't pay attention to this. And I began to see these stories paramount. And after, the war in Israel-Palestine, when you see stuff like The Experience written on the walls of Beersheba, or you see stuff like MK Ultra written on the walls of Beersheba, which is an Israeli city or Palestinian city, whichever way you see it. The matter is if you're a human being, not what your flag is, what your nationality, what your religion. It doesn't matter. If you think about, anything similar to Christ consciousness, the actual Christ consciousness, it doesn't see your nationality or religion, the way you practice. It doesn't see if you're a human being. That's what it is. So if like that, if you're the people kind of connect with that sort of vibe. And so I was thinking about what Ronald Bernard said, and the way he talks about, these people, these children, first of all, being sacrificed and going through torture, and then they become the person that wants to destroy things. So they bifurcate in a certain way. I understood that something like this happens. This is also why I did not litigate after Me Too, not only because the entire juristic system is corrupt, but also, there are many ways when you think about litigate. It's not just through the juristic system. To do something about this. Yes, so I wrote a satire, but on the structure, because I understood that the point is not to play this, to repeat, to perpetuate these things, but actually to break through to the 22 catch that they create for people. And the person that was violent to me, that they were in some way traumatized, but on purpose, so that they will be like this. And so if I connect this to the attempt to kidnap me when we were visiting my grandmother that was hospitalized, and I just needed to roam around like a kid, you cannot sit still. What is it's a kid. So then the doctor kind of hugged me and took me to the side, and fortunately a member of the family came to him and started shouting at him, and he said, "What are you disturbing?" Disturbing what? And this was how I was saved from this attempt to kidnap me. And even when I went to therapy and I talked about it, they say, "Oh, no, okay, nothing happened." But children, they are exposed to this. And there were also things that I was seeing that are to do with torture when I was a child, that I tried to address. And then, of course, they try to, like the cult, they try to play it on, like to cause you more trauma, just that. So to bring you to the state of a child, so to cause you more trauma. That was the technique. How do these things connect? Well, if you think about like the trusts where they use children as extort cards, so a politician or somebody that they raise to be a public figure or decision maker, or a person in key position that is going to look like they make some decision, they put them in situation where they are with these children. So now they have a card, extortion card, now this person will do everything. Okay, if you ask how come all of the countries got to, kind of like sell their citizens, it's not to sell the citizens, it's basically that they are being put in situations very much like this. And they play on childhood wounds. They can even, and one of the things you have to understand, that the drugs like ayahuasca, like MDMA that I used to heal from these things, given the wrong settings, they can be used to use the drug on the person so that the person will go to a psychic thing, and whatever comes out in this situation is not necessarily healing, but sometimes the other way around. It's not the blame of the drug, it's the blame of the settings. And so it's not impossible that people got drugged up in some party and then this was pictured and they showed them what you did. And if you listen to Terence McKenna, he said psychedelics, they cause people to want to be sexual with everything. So they're not very discreet. And this is very much how many people, you think about, your favorite football or soccer team. They have in a party, and this and that, and sometimes you don't even know what they put in the drink, in the this and the that. Happens what happens, they filmed this, now you go try and get out of it, now they extort you, now they got you. And then, of course, there are the children to such people that are, like Ronald said, sacrificed, then this is very likely what happens, and they put them to such extortion that they just want to destroy everything. When a person is cut off from love, and cannot access love because it's too fucking triggering, then and I had numerous attempts to cause me to be in such state, and had to really, really hold on to love, even though I didn't know so much what it is in the sense of like self-love. It's not because my parents didn't love me or my parents was abusive. No. It's because it's just the way it is, okay? It's just the way it is. And most people, I think, are not aware of this, or participants in this. If you ask people from North Korea what is love, they said there was love for the leader, okay? Or you think love for the nation, yes, but not love for the parents. Asian complaint, parents would not tell you I love you, but they would. It's not that they don't love you, that they would just prepare food for you or do other things for you. The word love was not in the lexicon. But here is not the case. It's more that there was some sort of internal experiences as well, and intergenerational, of course, that made it difficult to absorb love. So even though I was loved, it was difficult to absorb this, and every parent's is learning how to communicate, and so it's difficult. So when you think that your investments are deposited by only the places where the trust, what you call the trust, is basically a Peter ring, where the trust is reliant on betrayal, okay? Sedna and Gemini now trying in Pluto is a good time to expose this, because Sedna is about, infanticide, betrayal, and children's autonomy and children trade and so on. And the lesson from the Sedna story is that we don't want to do this. Yes, she got her powers as the goddess of the underworld and the goddess of the sea creatures, and you would have to appease Sedna to provide food and so on. But this is where then she became this mythical creature. But the reverence for Sedna is actually abolishing infanticide and abolishing child brides and honor killings. And it's not just done in one religion or one sect. It is in our cultures, and it is our gurus and teachers, and then it's our healers and shamans, and our psychologists and our teachers, and the people we looked up to, and the people that we were listening to their music, and the people that we were watching their show, and the people that were pursuing justice, and alle zusammen, and the people we had good experiences with, the people who we remember their jokes, and the people that were there for us in the difficult times. It's that. And so I remember I talked about the pink moon in Scorpio. That's going to be a very revelation of kind of like a Mobius loop, where everything is tied into one another. And I feel that this experience is already building up, even though the moon is still in Virgo, yes, but it's close to Lilith. And it's also, I talked about, expandable children, or where you kill children or sacrifice children. Of course, it becomes, this is interesting that this is in my culture, it means right. But in Indian culture, it means that you have to stay in a certain space until you get adjusted, so you wouldn't sneeze when you come to another space. So it's kind of clearing of the third eye in certain Indian cultures. Yes. So, but in my culture, it means this is right. I said something is right. I think also in Dutch culture that's what it means, but I'm not sure. Of course, expandable children becomes expandable leaders, expandable public figures. And this is why when you see, this person was assassinated, or this person was exposed, or this person was corrupt, or this or that, it's like, of course, they either would be the victim or the perpetrator in this situation. So when you think about like the Second World War, which was a very vicious game where people would do everything to live, and not just the Jews, not at all. And you understand it was not about Hitler was not taking down the cabal. He was a part of he was a part of this, because if this would be about the Jewish bankers, then he would assassinate the families of the wealth. Okay, not taking all the Jews from the cities. That okay. And this is important, because once you get to those, but it's also important, and what he did was also to take down the people who had disability and so on. So it was not inclusive, it was not bringing the alternative to those very cruel places, but unfortunately just playing the role of the same cabal that everybody wants to knock down. Yes, and this is important to understand. And so when it comes to what can we the people do, well, this is Pluto in Aquarius, so the age of transparency. So the people who are like anonymous can hack into systems and leak informations of the transactions. Now you won't get names. This is what I want you to understand. As a person who has Dutch nationality, then I was of the first people for whom the fingerprint would be taken immediately to renew the passport. And of course, it's Dutch passport. You will not give it up for your life. So you put the fingerprint and you think, oh, they are the Dutch. They know how to deal with technology. They're so advanced and so on. Yes, and so you give your fingerprint and you say, oh, it's good. Yes, when I arrived to Netherlands and the passport was not with me because I escaped violence, and the people at the border were very nice to me, but they had to call the Israeli embassy. They found a document from age 16 when my mother had to ask my father, they were divorced since I was 2, but my father to approve of my nationality, which he very kindly did, and I appreciate that a lot. and that's what they found when I was 16. Okay, all they really had to do was to ask for my fingerprint. But it can be the personnel. I'm very appreciative of them. Okay, they're very kind and polite to me. So they very likely would not ask for my fingerprint, because kind of like not to put me through embarrassment. But they did try to find the documents for me. They were very, very kind, very, very thoughtful. That being said, where are my fingerprints? I don't know. But you must understand, I recently looked at a cold case. I will not say the name because I have not asserted that this was the result yet. But this cold case had to do with documents that were stolen from a young girl that was going to the party, Dutch girl, decades ago. And I find that such cases where, they would take a person that crosses over as Dutch or looks Dutch or has Dutch name. And mind you, my parents spelled my name Shirley. It's just Shirley, but they spelled it with a very Dutch spelling, but nobody understood it when I was there. It was like Chili. So I think I'm going to add Chili to my name, which is interesting because Mars is involving with the name of the person. I have Mars in Scorpio, and so they call me Chili in the ninth house. Chili. So I find that cool. Chili. But the thing is that if you're looking for the big, I don't know, you name it, you're going to find the Jungblut and the Defries and Western names and the faces of like children who maybe died decades ago on the bank transferences of, so if you're thinking about, okay, that's what we will find in transparency, who did that? No, you won't. But what you will find is where did that money go to? Okay, what you will find is where did that money go to, what was happening. And this is very difficult to tell because you will have an okay business. And also you cannot survive as an okay business if you do not participate. So we call this dmei chasut in Hebrew, but they call this protection. Okay, so you pay for protection. And so this makes it difficult for people to be entrepreneurs. And even villages where the young business, they have to look for the person to pay protection to. They don't come to them. You have to look for who is this person and come to them. Otherwise, and then you think, oh, it's the Arabs, it's the Bedouins, it's the this, it's the that. Most of these criminals, and I know this, Ronald said that, and I believe him, and I heard it from someone who was also a survivor of child abuse, assault as a child. When it's the child abuse, not necessarily in the parents, I guess not at all, the parent actually protected, but it was abused as a child. And she said, no, the criminals, they hate pedophilia. They hate pedophilia. And she said they also hate mistreat of women, but it's very partial because they also have sex trafficking business. But you see that the big criminals are not necessarily those things that we think about as criminals. And so it doesn't mean that others are not criminals. It's just that it is just so. And like Ronald said, okay, these people are put through so much suffering that they already just want to kill everything. The access to love is seem far away dream, and they don't even know, don't have enough reference to this, and they just want to destroy life. But when it's not 100% this way, 100% that way. They also have very humane and very empathetic sides already get through children and animals. So and this bifurcation between violence and empathy that unfortunately I met in my life, also from my therapist, but not only. So this is, and yes, they do. One of the things Ronald mentioned, and I think is important to say, when they destroy the psyche of a person, then the person, very much like they said in the story, they begin to grow other senses. Okay, it's like life is actually way more insistent than we predict this to be. So very much like people who are blinded have pointed hearing, and so people who are put in situations where they cannot stay in the body, or they look at themselves like from an above the body situation. They don't know what's energy had this a lot. He would kind of like snatch me out of my body, and then I would try to go back to the room. It would take a couple of times to try to go back. It was pretty scary. And then it was also a very curious experience because it's very weird. But it came from him, so it was very weird. So there was also tremendous dependency there on both sides. And these dimensions, okay, well, it's not about a person who is meditating and have this exploration, maybe take some, MDMAs or some psychedelic drugs and kind of like, oh, I'm flying above my body from this elated position, where it should be, okay? It should be coming from elated position, but it's coming from trauma. And so the soul desires to go to these elated positions. It visits these elated positions, but then to stay there and to keep that, and then trauma resurfaces. So whether you go to the astral or you go, maybe with my therapist I felt it safer to be sexual in the astral, but it unfortunately was not. But you also learn how to set boundaries in the astral. So yes, and of course in science why it's called they don't know what's energy, because they would put on a masquerade of scientific cartel, because it's not science, that denounces you from having any insights that could actually lead to your healing, to validation, to speaking up, to being validated, to be seen, and to understanding that you're not imagining, and that if you find it difficult to work is because you need to rest, your body needs to rest because it's been through intense trauma, and you bifurcate from being overly active and being total couch potato, and unable to lift a pen, and the desire to keep you so isolated in this, even though nearly everyone is experiencing this, and to take away the things that could lead you to your healing, and to put these people in the junctures where at every juncture of therapy, from cradle to the grave, you are met with the same person from the same cult, that is kind of like a puppet for them, because they cannot, and if they will run away, then like Ronald said, then they would have to go through intense torture. When I ran away from They Don't Know What's Energy, you can imagine, you cannot imagine, actually. I really hope for you to not ever have to understand what I went through. And when they do these things on the energy level, they take advantage of this liminal space that was created with trust. Then you understand that it's also no point to talk about this to anybody, because people will think, oh, you are imagining, go take a pill that basically is murdering you in torture. And so this is also what I was waiting to speak about when I was writing Sugar-Free Lemonade, because you give the truth in bits and pieces, because you understand people are in no way, and you try to connect it for the people, okay, that there is a hidden facet, that there is a mind control facet that's involved, okay? A person just doesn't, it's not like that, okay, so your boss told you to do this, tell them to go fuck themselves, slaughter them, I don't know. Yes, this is very logical, but you have to understand that there is psychological abuse, and there is many things that we don't think about. Okay, when you think about communication, you think about I say what I feel, I say what I think, or alternatively, I know this person, I can't communicate, I don't say what I feel, I don't say what I think, I just and go away. Okay, these are the two modes which we usually have. Okay, we either I cannot talk to this person, I will just be diplomatic and go away, or if I'm a bit rebellious, I'll say nobody can, okay, you're not a person that somebody can talk to, or I say what I feel, I say what I think. Okay, the modus operandi of communication that they teach them on these cults has nothing to do with that. It's like they see systems as people and people as systems. So it's very much like you have an operational system in front of you, and you just operate this operational system, and this system is happening to be a human being, and that's why they're being hired for like intelligence and stuff like that. So it's very robotic, and I've experienced this. Okay, because when they do this to you, then you feel like you are a machine. So you study the operational points of your own machine to better improve on that. This is why when people talk to me about responsibility, I do my best to spit somewhere else and not in their face, but I do have to spit. And so because this is gaslighting, But in the roundabout way of when you get that, then it's the closer to what is a responsibility or accountability, because it's like, what are my points of interference? And when I say points of interference, you understand now more of what I'm talking about, more of where my huge corpus of thinking came from. It's not because I'm a genius, it's because those were the things that I had to do to stay alive. So I had to think about a lot of problems and to solve a lot of problems while my life depended on it. But you're not doing that alone. Usually the information comes to you, and that's assisting. So I guess that's what's coming now towards, the moon in Scorpio, kind of like the full moon, the pink moon, whatever you call it. By the way, Pink Moon is the name of a Nick Drake album, which is another figure that accompanies my life a lot. I can say that there are junctures in my life where I do feel things were fated. I'm also a pre-eclipse child. 11 days before eclipse, it's not tight eclipse child. But I do feel there are certain things I do feel that it's kind of like when you hear those channelers that channel Aliyah and channel I don't know, and then they say it was kind of like it was what was supposed to be, and I felt that this was what was supposed to be in a certain way. Then I feel this true also. Yes, in my case. By the way, yes, I live in Israel. No, I did not serve in IDF. And when I was in high school, I felt someone was protecting me because I was, like depressive, like all kids. And then I came with a shirt that was a button shirt, and I put the buttons all the way up to the throat, or to the last button. I had no idea what was I doing, why was I doing that. It's kind of feeling like Moses and the coals, because that was a sign in armies. I didn't know that, of a person that wants to take their life. So they would put on this sign to declare that they desire to suicide. I don't know what and how, and I cannot talk about like the procedure, but I did not go to the army, but also not to the psychiatric ward or anything at that point. It's just that I felt that this incident where I did not even know what I was doing, and that I was doing that, and I was very afraid from army, because I didn't want to be at the position where I have to obey orders, and I don't understand the orders, because I'm third generation to the Holocaust. I was not okay with just obeying orders, and also I'm not the type of person who can get up and with everyone and do it with everyone, and my fitness was not so good. So I would be very little in the army, just very, you wouldn't want to put me in such a situation with a gun. Let's be very clear on that. But this is also a part in my life where I remember I was very protected. And the name of the unit in the army that some protection came from to me is not a person I know in my life, was 669. I didn't know what is 669. It is search and rescue. So I have no idea. There's nobody that I know from my family that served in 669. I don't know who was this person. But this person is very likely the reason I did not go to the IDF. They saved me. They're not alive, probably, but they saved me. So, yes, I never spoke about this to anyone. Not even my parents, actually. They didn't want to hear it. But this is the story of how I live in Israel, and I did not serve in the army. For some people, they just don't recruit them. But this was a part of the truth. And 669 is a search and rescue unit. So, yeah. It's not the only part. Yes, my parent was active in that. By the way, because of the cases of sexual harassment that were happening in the army, so they understood that I'll be so violent in my response that it's better not to even put me there, not even for fear of what would happen to me, so much as how I would respond. And so when whatever happened in the Me Too happened in the academia, and that was before the Me Too, what happened to me, and I was like, I guess you didn't catch that in the army. It's kind of like smallpox. If you don't catch it when you're a kid, then catch it later. So I had to deal with that in the academia, because these are same structures. But I love to study, and I really wanted to be in like a place where I just, this is what they do and this is okay. But that is kind of the story of how it came about. So to whomever it helps to know that there was such a person as me, and to hear this story, I hope that maybe you feel more validated. Maybe this helps you to connect the dots in your story. Maybe you understand you're not alone with this. I don't have like all the answers for you, like why things happen so or so. I don't have any answers for that. But perhaps this is a point of connection, and more such testimonies and such stories. If you want to know more about like the torture parts, I saw the wars, I saw organs amputations, kind of like the China, and China's name was mentioned. I saw Alzheimer's, actually, like being cut off from memory, so suddenly not being able to remember words, or not impaired speech, yes, torture, kidnapping, rape, stuff like that. And you feel it on your body. It's trafficking of people. Europe was involved. Those kind of like rapes that you see like in the world. Unfortunately, I saw these too. Stuff like the Iran and stuff like that. I'm not sure if it was a psyop or not. Because you see, I don't see these things as country to country things, but I saw these things as well. They operate trying to move people like temperature. Okay, so you can difficulty to move your body, so something like taking over the body and difficulty to move the body. The kidnapping part, I have to say this. It's like I was told to that they would get to whomever on my phone list if I call them. So they're not going to scare me, I'm going to call everybody. So this is basically like they're having, I think it is, they're having like drills of what they would do with the kidnapping. So you see a person like me, they're like, I'm going to kill everybody. They're like, okay, we need to do it in a different way. I saw things to do with another party. I didn't know that was the issue, but they were like, oh, ask for a party where you feel safe in, and attempts to kind of like, because I was doing a channeling experiment later, so attempts to kind of lead me to those areas and to make me use drugs. I'm half Dutch, but I don't like drugs. I don't like cigarettes. So all these kinds of attempts that are, and also when you're trying to channel, many people try to channel, and the name of this channel before Spirit of Matter was Channeling Science. It was a channeling experiment, and I want people to delve into it. I want people to experiment. I also want you to understand that there are many forces that operate and will try to, disguise yourself, whether you're trying to communicate with a part of your body, like we're doing healing, or you're trying to communicate with guides or with deceased people or with whatever. So yes, there are messages, but there's also noise, and when people call psyop, it's definitely like the homeless person that I met, that he was kidnapping people for the IDF and putting psychic witchcraft on them. And I mean not the kind of benevolent witchcraft. And then he was a war veteran, and then he was kidnapped and put outside, and he didn't want to live in a housing because they would probably assassinate him in the house, and now it's like an open space where people can see him. So this was one testimony of a person. So this is done, okay, it's a part of warfare, and the many Israelis that heard orders from Gaza. Orders from Gaza. To me happened maybe once, and because I already kick out, I do it, return to sender, block, whatever, I wake up, whatever. If you feel something in the eyes or dryness in the eyes, make sure you're hydrated. And then you say, everything sent back to me, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, whatever, return to sender, do not involve children and people who are innocent that are not related to this. But already bring it all back to sender. Take the energy out of the body, all back to sender, and whichever way, to protect yourself. I think those things for people to see that they're permeable enough to see that there's such stuff, but also understanding that we're not helpless in this situation. There are points of interferences, as I call them. And so, yes, they do this to scare you so that you won't speak, but the telos of healing is that you have to speak, so you will speak, okay? That's what happened to Ronald Bernard in his own section. Yes, I felt this. Yes, it's not that the entire population suddenly became psychic, it's that there are operations done on these levels of consciousness. And yeah. So I hope that I was really trying to bring everything that I remember. Okay, to really talk about everything that I remember so that it's available for you, so that you don't have things or parts missing out. It probably are, but whether it's the psychic stuff, whether it's the threatening, whether it's the junctures of healing, okay, why people don't get to heal, where's the banking system, where it's going to work and feeling like your body doesn't operate because it's infiltrated with all these people, okay? Whether it is, your personal relationships or dating or sexuality. And yes, there's also the problems, kind of like the erection. I think Viagra was not because people are middle-aged, it was because there was in these cults and then the penis won't stand anymore, okay? So penis are not bad. it's an organ in the body, and then when you try to, it gets erect because of excitement, but when you come or orgasm with violence, then something gets fucked up in the system, and then to bring the erection back from a heart connection, it's taken a lot. And if this happens to a person through childhood, it's very, very difficult. So same with other sexual organs. It's just another thing, and this type of occult practice, they infiltrate the sexuality of the person. This is why you get all these, you go and study about relationships, like men like to be providers. So if you want to be feminine, allow men to help you. Men just want to give you pleasure. And then you see someone that does not operate like this at all. Or men communicate, when they say something, they just say what they mean. They don't have an interpretation level. You think it's like kind of like a wouldn't pass the Turing test, and then you see that they kind of do. So what's on there? So you're kind of like, okay, why is my man dysfunctional? I'm doing all the feminine thing that you told me to do. Why is it still dysfunctional? Oh yes, because they trained them to be like, a zombie that operates like an AI, and then they're going to be putting him to expiration date when they get the robots. So it's like, that's why your man is dysfunctional. And it all started from let's play with knives and be like knights in some story. And then, lo and behold, you cannot have orgasm with either a man or a woman and have a good, erectile experience without having to feel shame for whatever reason he is orgasming on, and or her or she or whatnot, and whatever, you know, and then you go and try to open a business and or work for a company. You usually start working for a company, then you're like, okay, I don't like it here, so I'll try to do something myself. And then you see, well, it's also a problem. You say, I'll go to study. I'll postpone the problem. And you see, it's also a problem there at the academia. They get you there. If they didn't get you in the army, they get you at the academia. And then you say, well, I don't know, I'll just listen to music. They get you there. I'll read some book. They get you there. So that is... it is indeed a problem that it's a blue ocean to change this. Because it does negatively affect all aspects of our lives. And but it's important to understand that the abundance of healing exists. You're just not going to meet them at the junctures where they put these people to accompany you from cradle to the grave. So I guess that's something to think about. And again, if this helps you, to know, to listen to such testimonies, to know that such people exist, that that no, you are not imagining, it really is that fucked up. And when we tend to this fucked up, then better things can emerge, okay? Because we find out, we look with curiosity at what is going on here, then we see points of interference. Most of the people trapped in these cults, whether it's Illuminati, Shmiluminati, Masons, I don't know what their name is, most of them are trapped. Okay, most of them are vying to get out. Most of the leaders that they're sacrificing now, most of them are trapped, they're dying to get out. Okay, most of the celebrities, okay, most of them are really dying for a way out of this. So it's less animosity than we think that it is, and it's less resistance to the positive change at this point, at least, than we think that it is. Okay, most of the people want to escape those types of situations. And so, and you have to understand that the people who are in those positions where they were put with such torture that all they want is to destroy, they are in those positions. And this is something if you know that this exists, then it gives you better grounds to find the points of interference in this situation. You acknowledge that this is the situation, that this is so, and this is not over there, and it's not those people, these Arabs, these Moroccans, these Templars. Die Templars maakt allemaal opvang zoeken, asiel zoeken, allemaal. Die Templars. None of these, whatever Islamic State would set foot on this land, stay in this way without the Templars. So, but I was surprised by Ronald to hear that the Rosicrucians is still that way. And you know, what would we hear about Rosicrucians? Think about Rudolf Steiner. Okay, one of the greatest anthroposophical thinkers, and many people look to him on how to raise our children, and so on and so forth. But these wars over possessions, okay, and the way that they work with the elite and the sacrifices that people make, this is the problem. Okay, it's not the problem that somebody comes with a philosophy, or that somebody calls themselves this or calls themselves that. Freedom often from religion is necessary. But the practices of child sacrifice, of torture, those things, whatever name you call it, whatever you put under the name, whether it's Muhammad, whether it's Moses, whether it's Rosie something, it doesn't matter. Okay, if that's what you do, it doesn't matter. And when your trust is based on betrayal, of course, eventually, of course, you will be betrayed, because you need that to have trust. You cannot put an equation that trust is equal in betrayal. But the flip side of it is that you're not going to have betrayal, because eventually you find out that the only way is to self-discovery and self-trust and directness. You gain your way back to truth and back to love, even if in a roundabout way. And so there's more trust, genuine trust, not expendable children trust, not betrayal trust, genuine trust that we know that exists. And yes, with that I'll end.